tonight.
DJ, with the unfortunate events that transpired today, the news that broke about Cam Akers missing the entire upcoming season here, I think you need to make an announcement to the entire fantasy football community because, and I'm not saying you're not taking a victory lap on this injury, but you made the most outlandish prediction last year that he was going to get hurt. He literally got hurt that next Sunday. And you said it again this offseason, like Cam Akers just looks like that guy that's going to get hurt. You don't want to draft him. I don't even know what all you said. But you texted me something about another player that I think you owe it to the entire fantasy football community to say that player's name and what's going to happen.
See, and this isn't, you're right. I'm not taking a victory lap because I have this player on my team and I need this player. Like, I love this player. I just had this weird gut feeling the other day that, and I texted you, that DK Metcalf was tearing his ACL this year.
Oh my God. I swear to God, DJ, if DK Metcalf, not even an ACL, if anything happens where he misses an extended period of time, I am immediately quitting the podcast and I am taking you out of my life because I don't want you to curse me. So with that, let's get loaded because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first because we finish last.
Welcome back to the Loaded Box Podcast. We've got Ben Morgan, we got DJ Primo, we've got Mikey Ostrowski. We are back. We're actually done with our Dynasty Shark Tank series. If you missed any of those episodes, you're definitely going to want to go back and check those out. We had a blast. I know these two guys that are joining me had a blast with those as well. And we're moving on to our redraft fantasy preview starting this week. We're going to break it out with a preview of all the fantasy relevant players from the Vikings and the Bears. But before we get started, Mikey, would you care to tell us what the hell is on that bed behind you?
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
There it is.
There's also one other thing I need to say before we get started because DJ says, I'm waiting for the day that you call me out for being on my phone as soon as we start the episode. So, DJ, I am your genie in a bottle. You rub me the right way. You're on your phone. What are you doing?
It's not authentic. It's not authentic because you know what I'm doing.
So you want me to just blow by that then?
Yeah, that's not authentic. I was hoping you would not know what I was doing in a previous episode so I could just fucking go off for repping the pod, but you knew what I was doing, so it's not fun.
So DJ's clearly sharing the podcast, and I think it was pretty obvious. So I don't know why you were calling me out on it. You think I'm just like
you like to just yell about random shit. Yeah, you're the idiot.
Thank you. Well, we're going to go player by player through the fantasy relevant guys on these two teams. It kind of pains me that we're starting with a quarterback that I don't really consider to be all too fantasy relevant. His name is Kirk Cousins. He is the 18th quarterback off the board right now. He's going 11-02. If you look at our Loaded Box Podcast rankings, I've got him 18th. DJ has him 15th, and Mikey has him 17th. So we're all around this same prediction for him. But Mikey, I'll start it with you. In the event that you want to roster two quarterbacks on your redraft fantasy squad, is Kirk Cousins even on your radar then? Do you see him as a viable backup, or is this a guy that you're just not touching and you feel like you could potentially pick up on waivers later?
No, I definitely see him as a viable backup. I mean, my thing with Kirk Cousins is he's got Dalvin Cook, which is one of the best running backs in the league. He's got Justin Jefferson, which was the best rookie to enter the entire league last year. And then you have Adam Thielen, who was just forever underappreciated and underrated. Kirk Cousins really isn't that bad from a fantasy perspective. I mean, there's really not any – like he's not the sexy play any week.
Correct.
But there's definitely weeks where he's going to go off for 24, 25 points. I mean, at the same time, you're risking with Kirk Cousins in your lineup him getting 10 to 12 points.
Right.
But he's just one of those guys where, like, in a pinch, you could do a hell of a lot worse. In bye weeks, you could do a hell of a lot worse. In positive matchups, you can do a hell of a lot worse. By no means would I ever use Cousins as my quote-unquote QB1. Right. But I'd be more than happy to have him as my backup. And if I was in like a super flex league where I'm starting two quarterbacks, I honestly, you could punt the second quarterback position so long if you wait on Kirk Cousins, and I'd be totally fine with doing that in two QBs.
Yeah, not a bad strategy. DJ, you started out when Mikey was talking with the most look of frustration that I've ever seen, and now you're just like happy-go-lucky. What kind of range of emotions did you just go through there?
No. I'm not going to even consider super flex here, but in my strategy, Ben, you know my strategy when it comes to quarterbacks. He probably would end up being. He's the type of guy that I would draft as my first quarterback because he's consistently underrated. This is fantasy football. I hate Kirk Cousins, obviously, as a football player in real life because he blows games, but he was quarterback 11 last year, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
That's QB1. He's consistently underrated just because he's just not a great quarterback that people like, and he doesn't have that rushing upside. But he does have Justin Jefferson. He does have Adam Thielen, who's a touchdown monster. He does have Dalvin Cook. Like, he has guys that offensive line's improving. They're just going to be, I think, offensively better this year. The Packers may be down in general, and the Bears defense isn't what it was 2 years back. So, I mean, this is the guy you are getting at a discount that I would sit and wait to grab as my quarterback 100%. It would fit perfectly on my team. I'd grab him in, round 11, maybe end of round 8, and I would be ecstatic, and then come back with fucking, I don't know, some other random quarterback to stack behind him 2 rounds later. I would just put 2 guys similar to him, maybe someone with maybe a little bit more rushing upside, like Jalen Hurts 2 rounds later or something like that, just to have the combination of them. But yeah, I love that ADP. I would snag the shit out of him there.
See, I just feel like even if you wait for a quarterback, though, like considering the fact that he's your quarterback 15, you would essentially need everyone to pick their first quarterback, and then 2 other quarterbacks to go before you even draft. Are you really going to hang on that long? It seems crazy to me.
I have never drafted a quarterback before round 10.
Okay.
I do it all the time. I do it every year.
What I was going to say, the crazy thing about Kirk Cousins as well, so I think he's been in Minnesota, 3 or 4 years, and he's only had 1 overall season where he's finished as a quarterback 1. The crazy thing is he's routinely made 2 of his fantasy football receivers fantasy relevant, whether it's Diggs, Thielen, Jefferson now. But he just doesn't get it because of like what Mikey said. There's no rushing upside, and that team runs the ball more effectively than most people with their actual running back. So he's a bit capped.
I said there's no rushing upside.
Yeah, I'll give credit to DJ on that one. But yeah, I mean, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Kirk Cousins. I mean, he set a career high last year, 35 touchdowns. He's throwing to the exact same players with the exception of no Kyle Rudolph, which I think he had 3 touchdowns last year anyway. I mean, this is one of those teams where that offense is quietly very, very good. So I mean,
we talked about this pre-show. Coughing is acceptable.
No, I don't think I have the cojones that you do, DJ, in completely punting it and letting the season ride with Kirk Cousins as my QB1. But at the same time, I mean, I agree. I'm never one that reaches on a quarterback early. I think the earliest I've ever drafted a quarterback was maybe round 7, and that's because a guy that should have gone by round 5 was still there, and I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll take him. Yeah, I mean, you could do a lot worse than Kirk Cousins. It's just not a sexy pick, that's the best way I can put it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to one of the sexiest picks then of the draft. So that's Dalvin Cook. He's the consensus RB2 overall player. Number 2, me and Mikey both have him as our RB2s, and DJ has him a little bit lower at RB4. And it's not like it's that much lower, but DJ, I see you've got McCaffrey, Saquon, probably barring injury, Alvin Kamara, and then Cook. Why are you just a smidget lower than us? And why? That's what I was going back to. Why do you keep doing that before we talk about every player?
Because it's irrelevant. I mean, this player right here, this is irrelevant where I have them inside the top 5. They're interchangeable. Alvin Kamara is really good. Saquon Barkley's really good. And Chris McCaffrey's really good. So it's like 4 or 2, whatever. It's not even almost worth my time to discuss it because I don't think you go wrong anywhere. So it's who cares about 4, which I think but that's why I'm doing this.
Okay. The thing about Cook, I was looking at his stats. I wrote a Vikings preview. I haven't released it yet, but he's consistently finished towards the top, but it's the injuries. Like if you have a downgrade on Dalvin Cook, it's because of what DJ said about Cam Akers. You think he might get injured, but even though he missed a couple of games last year, he still finished as crazy high. I don't remember what the overall number was.
I can tell you right now. He was the RB2.
He was
in PPR. I can tell you that.
Outside of injury, though,
3.
Okay. close enough. Mikey, outside of injury, is there anything to hate about this guy? Like, is there any reason why you wouldn't make him at the second player off the board?
I mean, the offensive line isn't fantastic, but I don't give a fuck about that. He was perfectly fine with them last year. I mean, he had over 1,500 rushing yards last year in only 14 games. He's not going to play a full 17 games this season. I don't think we'll ever see a fully healthy season from Dalvin Cook. It's just not how it is. But I mean, yeah, when he's on, he's on. He is a surefire, matchup-proof, top 5 running back. They just paid the man last year. Like, I have him as my redraft RB2 right now. DJ, like you were saying, my 2 through 5 is pretty much interchangeable at this point. But it's Dalvin Cook. I don't think there's anything I can say that people don't already know about him.
Right. I'm on board with that. I can't add anything new that you guys hadn't. With that, we can move on to his backup because he's currently going as the 48th running back off the board. End of the 12th round, I've got him at my RB 47. DJ's at 38. Mikey's at 53. He goes by the name Alexander Madison. DJ, do you have him ranked higher than Mikey and I, do you think, because of the fact that Dalvin Cook could get injured? And if he does, Alexander Madison becomes a plug-and-play RB1 on damn near any fantasy squad?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You've got a lot of your starters up there in those top 32. Plus, you've got like a Kareem Hunt who's weird in there and some other, second guys that fit up in those top 32. So I'm having him as one of my top backups. And I simply just because I think he's actually a pretty damn good running back when he does get action. He's a good football player. And the fact that we talked about, Dalvin Cook, he's not always the healthiest guy in the world, but also to go along with that, you get the opportunity to steal a guy. I don't know. I'm trying to remember, and maybe you can remind me, Ben, but I think it was 2-3 years ago I drafted a running back, and I waited just like one round too long to draft his handcuff. His handcuff, and then of course, it was it Le'Veon? James Conner? I think it might have been a few years back then. I think it was the Steelers. Le'Veon got hurt and James Conner came in and just dominated. Did that happen? Anybody? Nobody?
Yeah, I think so.
Of how it played out.
I know.
Le'Veon sat out and Conner came in and that's when he had his breakout.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I wasn't sure if Le'Veon was going to play or not, but I was like, all right, I'll draft him early. I'll get Conner. Well, I waited too long. I mean, it's not the exact same situation, but similar. You've got an RB1, RB2 if Dalvin Cook goes down, and a steal if you try to get him away from the guy that drafted Dalvin Cook. So I think you have to jump up a little bit to try to get him.
Yeah, and I think drafting him here, you're obviously not considering him as a starter by any means. He's probably your team's 4th, 5th running back at that point. So you're only kind of using him in that situation. I'm looking at his competitors for people going around the same area. You mean Jamal Williams, J.D. McKissick, Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Tariq Cohen.
Yeah.
Like, if you're hoping for a guy to go down, like Madison's probably the best guy of that crew that's going to step in and get fantasy production. So
could you repeat those guys one more time?
Yeah, I'm looking at Jamal Williams, J.D. McKissick, Phillip Lindsay, Marlon Mack, Tariq Cohen. That's kind of who he's surrounded by.
I mean, with the exception of Marlon Mack, I would take every single one of those guys over Alexander Madison.
Why?
Because they all have standalone value.
Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, Tariq Cohen has incredible standalone value. He was an RB1 from fantasy like 3 years ago. Like I know that you're
talking about him during the Bears because that's going to be a heated one.
Okay, so I'll save him for that. But there's,
cool.
I mean, in my opinion, unless you have Dalvin Cook, it's absolutely ridiculous to take Madison over Tariq Cohen. I have Madison. I don't want to say significantly lower than you guys. Well, significantly lower than DJ. Ben, you and I are pretty much in the same zone. I mean, my thing with Madison is that he was – I mean, he's only going into his 3rd year, right? Like, we haven't seen a whole ton from him. This year, the Vikings depth chart is not, quote-unquote, as deep as it was in the previous years, and what that means is there's no more Mike Boone back there for Alexander Madison to split touches with when he fills in. I think Amir Abdullah is their 3rd string running back for what that's
Amir Abdullah, asshole.
Whatever. Either way, if I could just point one thing out, I mean, Alexander Madison, he got to start 2 of the 3 games that Dalvin Cook only missed 2 games. Alexander Madison started both of them. He played in, I believe, 13 or 14 games this season total. Christian McCaffrey played in 3 games. Alexander Madison finished with less fantasy points than Christian McCaffrey, despite starting the exact same amount of games and playing in an additional 9 to 10. And I know what you're going to say. It's not, he's not a Christian McCaffrey type athlete, and that's not what I'm comparing it to. What I'm saying is the guy had 13 games to do something. He started in 2 games, and his stats were actually worse than they were when he was a strict backup in 2019. So it's I'm not going for him unless I take Dalvin Cook.
See, I disagree with your premise there. I'm taking the guy based off of the risk to Dalvin Cook rather than like his backup status. Like he's a good running back who's going to be successful if Dalvin Cook's gone. Dalvin Cook's so good that if he's healthy and playing, obviously Alexander Madison's not going to put up numbers. Like, you know what? Then it is what it is. I'll drop him and try to grab somebody else. But it's
that's the thing. You don't want to take a guy that you're so willing to drop before the injury. I mean, for all you know,
that ADP, that's exactly what you're drafting. So take the guy that you like the most there.
I'll agree to disagree on that one.
I nailed that right there.
No, you kind of didn't. It's a pretty bad logic. But whatever. We'll move on from Alexander Madison.
I'll pipe in with one last thing, and I did that partially for you, DJ, because I know you like the word pipe in.
Fucking pipe in.
I think I'm kind of in the mix between both of you. Honestly, I'll find a little common ground because I do agree with DJ that if Cook goes down, like, bam, you plug in Madison, you don't think twice about it. But I agree.
Are you going to hold on to him until week 7 or week 8 at that point? Like, he's going to be the first guy that you drop in week 1 when you want to pick up someone off of
all running backs are trash. Running backs are trash past the first 4 rounds.
Here's the deal, Mike.
Not the guys that are going around him.
This is why I would say I agree with you, though, too. I'm not going out of my way to draft him as RB like 38 or 40, wherever DJ has him, unless I have Dalvin Cook. But even if I have Dalvin Cook, what's he going right now? So Madison's going at the end of the 12th. Would I spend an 11th rounder on him? Maybe. Like, I would maybe jump up around early just to have that handcuff. And then I'd have a little bit more skin in the game as to why I would want to keep him. Because if I already have Dalvin Cook, I should be pretty damn set at running back from the most part. So I want the handcuff. So that's where I find a little bit of common ground between both of your cases. Happy? Are you guys good with that?
No,
I'll save the rest of my argument for when we talk about Kirk Cohen, because apparently I'm not allowed to finish my argument right now.
Oh yeah, we'll make you wait. It's a spoiler. Let's move on to the wide receiver position for the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, like Mikey said, takes the lead by storm. Current ADP is the wide receiver 8 going in the later part of the second round to 11. I've got him as my wide receiver 8. Mikey has him as his wide receiver 9, and DJ has him as the wide receiver 10. We're all on board here. I'm looking at guys that are going in that same range, and his ADP actually going back to a couple episodes ago, Mikey, is 1 spot higher, 6 overall if you think about all the players, than Michael Thomas. And I can tell you flat out right now, I am all in on Justin Jefferson over a guy like Michael Thomas. I think DJ would agree with me, but Mikey, I could let you tell me maybe why we would be wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just dealer's choice at that point. Like, this is kind of like me trying to argue Dalvin Cook over Saquon Barkley or something like that. I think Justin Jefferson and Michael Thomas are firmly in the same tier. We saw what Michael Thomas did 2 years ago. That was absolutely phenomenal. We saw what Justin Jefferson did as a rookie last year, which was also absolutely phenomenal. If you put the two side by side, Justin Jefferson has arguably, if not definitely, the better quarterback position, and he's seeing more of the same. Where Michael Thomas, we haven't seen anything really big from him, since the 2019 season, which is obviously far removed at this point. So, I mean, just from the upside standpoint that we have with Michael Thomas, I would take him slightly over Justin Jefferson. But at the end of the day, like, if I'm on the clock and you're holding a gun to my head saying, hey, if you don't pick Justin Jefferson over Michael Thomas, I would easily pick Justin Jefferson, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's the same. It's all the same to me.
If I have a gun to your head, I'm telling you to take anybody over anyone. You should take him like
I'll drop your ass, DJ.
You just get murdered. Like, I don't understand. What a weird fucking, I don't know, thing.
Analogy? It's an expression, man.
Yeah, expression.
DJ, you probably can't say a damn bad thing about Justin Jefferson because I was actually.
Yeah, I feel like I accidentally added a 0 next to my ranking.
I couldn't believe that you were the low. Not that it's significant by any means, but I was going through like old videos, deleting, getting some storage on my phone because I think I'm still rocking like an iPhone 6 or an 8 or something. And it's kind of been slowing down, so I'm deleting some shit. And I saw a video that I took of one of our episodes, and I think I'm going to try to quote you as close as possible. You said something along the lines of Justin Jefferson going into the league. You said, if you don't know who Justin Jefferson is by now, you're about to find the fuck out. And you said it with such force and emphasis that I think you willed Justin Jefferson to a 1,400-yard season last year.
And I'm disappointed because you're really good at going to find like the takes that you think are great, but I'm sure you've seen really good takes by me, and you just very easily skim right by all those other ones.
BS. I just gave you props.
First time ever.
Second time.
There's a million of those probably just floating in your text message all over the place.
I told you not 9 or 10 hours ago that your greatest prediction of all time came to fruition today when you killed Cam Akers.
Hey, I'm not proud of it. I just have, you see a guy, you get a feeling he's like, oh, he might be one of those injury-prone guys his entire career. I think he might lose the season. He did. I feel bad. I'm sorry for Cam Akers, but I don't have much to say on Justin Jefferson. Like, he's just really fucking good. And if you have him higher than where I have him, I might have him ranked here and then accidentally go up and just talk myself into drafting him like 5 spot high. I've been known to do that in my day. So
that's common.
Yeah.
I'm pulling a line out of the article that I put together for the Vikings here. Even if he captures 80% of what he produced last year, he'd still catch 70 balls for 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, it ain't too bad.
So, yeah, that's not bad. I mean, it might be a little bit high for the 8th receiver off the board, especially considering today's NFL, but that's only 80%. And you think the guys – I do think there might be a regression just because of the sheer numbers that he did put up, but talent-wise, he's going to get better. Like, there's no way that he's going to just fall off from what he was doing. So I think he's safe, and he gives you crazy boom week potential. So no, I can't say anything.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did actually end up as a wide receiver 1 in all formats, like in year 2. Like, I don't think he will, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Like, I think he's that talented.
Dude, he posted more than 20 PPR points 5 times, and 2 of his games he went over 30. He won you your week.
Yeah.
That's what he does. He did that as a rookie.
And they didn't even play him in like the first 4 games. Like, he was the 3rd wide receiver
week
in
3,
the 4th.
he finally
was it the 3 games? It's like they had what's it, B-Cell, whatever his name was, as BC Johnson as the wide receiver 2, and that was like his training camp was those first couple of weeks. So he wasn't even like getting proper looks in the first couple of weeks. So I mean, he wasn't even reaching his full potential for last year because of those first couple of weeks.
For sure. Let's talk about his next guy here, Adam Thielen.
Ugh.
ADP right now is wide receiver 18, going as the 10th pick in the 4th round. I'm spot on with his ADP. I've got him at 18. DJ's got him at 23. Mikey's got him at 21. Nothing too crazy there. So Jefferson did beat him in receptions and yards. But Thielen posted 14 touchdowns last year. Mikey, I'll turn this to you. We're obviously going to see a regression in touchdowns this year, but do you think as teams are trying to focus on Jefferson a little bit more, those receptions and those yards go back up?
I think the yards go up. I think he will post over 1,000 yards this year. He finished with, what was it, like 925.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, especially with the extra game, I think he will post 1,000 yards this year. But I'll be surprised to see him post double-digit touchdowns. That was kind of unprecedented. Before this, 2018, he had 9 touchdowns. Every other season, I mean, I know he broke out in 2016, and since then, he's only had, 9 touchdowns or more twice, with last year being 14. So I don't think he's going to post those same numbers. I don't think Kirk Cousins is throwing for 35 touchdowns again, which sure as hell helped Adam Thielen.
Right.
I mean, overall, I'm looking it up right now. Adam Thielen finished as wide receiver 10 in PPR, but even that was only 20 points more than wide receiver 17. I don't think Adam Thielen's going to fall out of the wide receiver 2 range, But where I have him at wide receiver 21, I think that's the most likely outcome. I think he's going to be one of those mid to low range wide receiver 2s. He's going to have the upside to win you a week or two here and there, but I think there's going to be a lack of consistency, and there's just Justin Jefferson's the star of that offense now, at least out wide. Right. So Adam Thielen's just another one of those. He's Kirk Cousins of wide receivers. It's just an unsexy pick. He'll get the job done for you, but it's eh.
Yeah, this is his age 31 season, DJ. Last year, you kind of came forward and said that it was going to be his year that he takes a bit of a back seat. Because he was kind of in that way bottom part of wide receiver 1, top half of wide receiver 2. And you were kind of ready saying, hey, he's not going to be finishing in that area this year. And that's about where he was. But being 31, that's typically the age when wide receivers take a little bit of a step back. But the thing is with Thielen, he has a relatively low mileage because he spent the first part of his year as more of a special teams guy. But DJ, are you going to hold pat with your ranking here, wide receiver 23, and say this is the year he finishes at that back half wide receiver 2?
You guys ever seen a dog suck on a blanket before?
Yeah.
What's this shit? Isn't that weird? He just sits and sucks on a blanket. He's just sucking on a blanket.
It's calming for their teeth.
No, it's not. That's not what it's for. Anyways. Isn't that weird? So my goal this year is in fantasy football drafts. I have like a new thing every year, right? This year it's erase my biases and just look at fantasy football. And I really hate like Adam Thielen's and just white wide receivers in general. So I'm going to try to throw those biases out the door. Did not make the mistake that I did last year because I was really down on him last year. Here's the thing. Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen have like ultimate familiarity. It's like a Jordy Nelson, Aaron Rodgers thing. So I don't think I can. Yeah, he's going to be good. He's going to be relevant. He's going to score touchdowns. He's going to put up some yards. He's borderline fantasy wide receiver 1, probably lower 2s in general. But yeah, I'm upset that I'm saying good things about him. But he's going to put up points. He's going to do it because Kirk Cousins knows him. He's familiar with them. He scores touchdowns. He's still a good route runner. It's just a familiarity thing. So he's going to favor him, I think, no matter one way or the other, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I was actually playing around with some mocks recently on one of the fantasy apps, and I was just trying out different strategies. In one of my strategies, I went running back, tight end, running back, and I made Thielen my wide receiver 1. And just the depth at position, I was like, wow, I typically never touch a tight end that early. I'm kind of curious and intrigued to even just do it this year because if I can get 2 studs at running back, give me Darren Waller, who I love as like the 2nd overall tight end. Another running back, I got my flex taken care of. I'm kind of cool with Thielen as my wide receiver 1. Like, I don't think he's going to blow up, but with all the depth you can have, you're going to have such an advantage at tight end and running back that you can find some guys to fill in at wide receiver. That's usually where you get your free agent pickups as well. It'd be worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, I would be uncomfortable rolling with him as my wide receiver 1, to be completely honest with you. But I don't hate the idea because, I mean, if you're looking at the list of wide receivers this year, I mean, only the top 36 guys are wide receiver 1 through wide receiver 3 from fantasy football standpoint. But I mean, if you tier them all together, right, your 1 through 5 or 6 guys are all around the same. Your 7 through 14 or whatever, right, all around the same. Adam Thielen is in, that tier 3. That's probably 15 to 20 players deep right now. Yeah. So I definitely don't hate it. It's definitely by far the deepest position in the entire NFL this year. And if you're going to punt on any position for fantasy, I'd do it with wide receiver.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
One. Yeah. Well, let's move on to I just spoiled it, to a position that DJ typically punts on. And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, Irv Smith has an ADP of tight end 16. He's got the ADP of going as the 8th pick in the 12th round. I've got him as my tight end 16. Mikey has him as his tight end 15. And DJ doesn't have a ranking because if you're brand new to the Loaded Box podcast, DJ does not rank tight ends unless they are females, typically celebrities as well. Mikey, I don't want to spend too much time on this one. I honestly think that you can do so much better, even if you're waiting at tight end. Irv Smith, honestly, is not really on my fantasy radar this year.
No, he's not on my radar either. And I remember after Kyle Rudolph signed with the Giants, there was literally a report where the coaches of the Minnesota Vikings were saying, don't expect much. It's Irv Smith. Yep. Like, he's not going to see an uptick. That's what we have depth for. I don't think we're going to see much from him at all. Honestly, I was looking at the numbers. If you combine his stats with Kyle Rudolph's stats, you still only have like the tight end 10 from last year, something like that. And the tight end 10 is, let's see, the tight end 10 was only 9 points better than the tight end 16. That's crazy. I can tell you right now, Irv Smith is not taking every single bit of Kyle Rudolph's workload from last year. So best case scenario, you're getting a tier 3 receiver or a tier 3 tight end out of him. I mean, if he falls far enough, I can take him as my second tight end because there's a little bit of upside there, but I'm not going out of my way in any way, shape, or form to get him on my team.
If you combine his 2 years in the league, he has under 70 receptions, under 700 yards, and 7 total touchdowns. And I get he's never been the focal point, but what I'm going to do this year, and this is what I wrote in the article, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this as a year to be an Irv Smith Jr. observer. I'll let him be someone else's issue on the fantasy. If he does well and he finishes as a tight end in that 8 to 12 range, great. You got yourself a steal. I think there's other guys in that range that you can take a chance with versus taking a chance on Irv Smith. Even in the back half of the 12th round, not a big fan.
Yeah, and I mean, you could argue that tight ends don't typically break out until their third or fourth NFL season anyway, because, I mean, tight end is the hardest position to adapt to from college to the NFL. But, I mean, if he's going to make a leap, it's going to be this year. But if we do see a leap, I mean, like I said, the best outcome is probably around the tight end 10, tight end 11, and at that point, that's only 8 or 9 points better than the tight end 16. So, like, what's really the benefit there, you know?
No, totally agree. DJ, you have anything to add besides maybe like an Eva Mendez shout out?
I'll probably draft Irv Smith. About where I would probably take a tight end.
Sounds about right.
I'll drop him after week 1, but whatever.
There you go, for Alexander Madison.
Somebody.
Before we move on to the Bears, want to tell you guys. So this last weekend I was out of town. I didn't get to run any meat over my man grades. However, this next weekend,
I wish you didn't say it like that.
I was
don't like that either.
One of you guys would make comment of that. I liked how that came out. So on Saturday, I'm doing like an all-day pontoon trip. And then we're coming back to my place. And I think it'll be the second or third time I've done steaks on the man grates. I am beyond excited because like I said in the previous podcast, I've never been the kind of guy that like prides himself on the appearance of the food. I just want the flavor. Give me the taste. Give me the atmosphere. I don't need the looks. However, with that man grate, with the perfect grill lines, with the way that the man grate ends up getting heated, instead of just going right off of your typical grate, everything's cooked so perfectly. I'm going to get my fancy plates out. We're going to be pontooning all day. We're going to get the fancy plates out, fancy silverware. I'm going to grill up those steaks on the man grate. And I tell you what, all of those guys' wives are going to be like, dude, Ben, how did you make those steaks? And I'm not going to like front. I'm not going to say it's just me. I'm going to give a little bit of prop to the man grate. And that can be you as well. So get 25% off your grates and your brushes, mangrate.com, by using promo code LOADED. We will move on to the Bears unless DJ wants to make a freaking one-liner about man grates making me a griller that I never was before.
I was going to comment about your grilling because you said you're all about the flavor before the man grate, but you never did that either. So I was confused.
So you said no, but yes, but then you did still rip on me. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to Justin Fields because this one threw me a little bit for a loop when I looked up his ADP because he's going as the quarterback 19, early 11th round. Mikey, you're right on board there. You got him as your quarterback 21. I've got him as my quarterback 28, and DJ has him as his quarterback 32. So, Mikey, since you're a little bit different than DJ and myself, we'll give you the first shot at this one. Why is he? And it's not even that he's that high, but why are you considering him at this point in a redraft league?
I'm going to give you one name, and I'm going to give you one word. That name is Allen Robinson, and the word is rushing.
Yeah.
Justin Fields has Allen Robinson, who is one of the league's most reliable receivers over the last 3 to 4 years. I cannot wait to talk about Allen Robinson and a few players, so I won't do it too much. But I will say that he is extremely reliable. He's made terrible quarterback after terrible quarterback after terrible quarterback look good, and Justin Fields is not a terrible quarterback. He's just a rookie. But Allen Robinson is going to make him look good. Then you have the rushing upside of Justin Fields. And I think I was saying this I've probably said this in almost every single episode that we've done whenever we bring up quarterbacks. I love the quarterbacks with the rushing upside, and you get legitimate rushing upside with Justin Fields. The offensive line there is far from stellar. He's going to be running quite a bit, in my opinion. So I think he's going to make the most of it. I think we're going to see a lot of points from him. Even if he only gets one touchdown through the air, I think he's going to be a pretty safe lock to get somewhere between like 40 and 60 rushing yards almost every week, which is an additional 4 to 6 points right out the gate. So in my opinion, he's going to be one of those safe floor, high upside quarterback plays. And if you're punting the position, I'm not saying draft Justin Fields as your QB1, but it's not. He's a really, really, really good later round flyer at the quarterback position.
Okay, so here's the thing. I like Justin Fields, so I'm not saying anything that you're saying is wrong. The only thing I'm doing here is this is my pre-draft, this is my pre-seat, my first rankings that we did. Yeah. And the only reason I'm putting him at that spot is because I just don't know right now. Right now, and they're just claiming Andy Dalton's a starter. So I'm just going to put him in that 32 spot because to me, he's just the best technical backup at that spot. If he's a starter, he's 100% going to move up my rankings later in the season. Mm-hmm. He has the rushing upside. I've been on record to say this is the best draft pick the Bears have ever made. I'm a fan of Justin Fields. Yeah. He can throw the ball. He's got rushing upside. I don't know how dumb they are. The Chicago. I do know how dumb they are. That's the problem. So I don't know if he will be starting. I've been saying over and over again on our podcast with Ben, I am of the belief that he is going to start week 1, and they just keep saying this to say it to make Andy Dalton feel better about bringing him there. I think when it comes down to it, they have to start him because Matt Nagy has to save his job. But right now, I just have to put him right now as the best backup until I see more. I just have to wait to see what the Bears are going to do going into the season. But I agree with everything that you said. It's just a matter of opportunity, right?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I have him as QB21 is not necessarily me saying he's going to finish with the 21 most points of a quarterback, right? I don't know when he's going to take over or what, but around the quarterback 20, 21 or so, that's when I'm comfortable at taking him as my second quarterback. Because if I draft one of my quarterbacks that I think is even in the top 12, or even a top 13, top 14 quarterback in my own personal rankings, I'm happy to do that and then grab Justin Fields as my backup, knowing for a fact that at the very least, probably by week 5 or week 6, I'm going to have my quarterback in Justin Fields, right? So I do think so. I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think he's going to start, by week 1 or week 2, but worst case scenario, it's going to be about midway through the season. But he's going to have, and I'll state this on the podcast right here, he is going to be a league winner at the quarterback position because when the fantasy playoffs come around, he's going to be that guy that you got super cheap during your draft. You held on to him all that time. And he's going to be one of those guys putting up top 10 fantasy points towards the end of the season because of all the upside that he has.
I have to echo exactly what DJ said because that's literally why I have him ranked where I have him ranked because I would like to have him higher, but the uncertainty. So I can't add anymore. I agree with what DJ said, and I even echo his sentiments about agreeing with Mikey. So that was anticlimactic from a dispute point of view, from a debate point of view, but that's not what we're here to do. We're just here to talk about some football players. So with that, I know this one will have a little bit of this one might have a little bit of fireworks because DJ loves David Montgomery.
The yellow one or the green one?
In the box. I want the beer in the box.
Green one.
Yeah, right there. Thank you.
David Montgomery going as the last pick in the third round, running back 20. I've got him at running back 15. Mikey also has him at running back 15. And DJ, you are rocking it with running back 8. I know he took off a little bit last year. They also obviously are getting a healthy Tariq Cohen. They brought in Damian Williams, but you do not give an F. Running back 8, DJ, go ahead and sell him.
Here's the thing, and I know you're going to use numbers probably, Mikey, and I don't
Nice
do numbers.
crack.
That was a nice crack.
I don't do numbers. I watch what happens on the field. It's never been my thing. I know I saw like Elliot Chris today. It's like, are you even a fantasy football analyst if you don't use numbers? Yeah, absolutely, because I think I'm just as accurate as anybody who can use numbers, right? I watched the running back fucking just take over this year, all right? And I see a team that just isn't very good around them. And they are going to rely on what they saw from David Montgomery, second half of the season, the entire year. Because that's part of what's going to save I can't fucking
Nagy.
What's this stupid Matt Nagy this season. David Montgomery running the damn ball down people's throats. He's a very good pass catcher, has been since he played at Iowa State. They finally can use him that way. I really do think Tariq Cohen has less of a place now that they've seen what Montgomery can do. I will have Montgomery in every single league I am in this year. There's no doubt in my mind. He'll probably be my RB1 and everything, but if I can go like early round first and then early round second, get him in the early second, 100% getting, or not early second, but somewhere in the second round, I'll absolutely do that.
But DJ,
I'm going to break my arm reaching for him.
Hyperextension.
I get my guys.
Are you a little bit nervous though? Because so last year it was once Cohen was out, there wasn't anyone else. Like it was going to be Montgomery. This year they've got Cohen and Williams, who are both historically like your pass catching back. So that's going to cut a little bit into Montgomery's role. I agree with you. I'm just trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. The fact that there's 2 of those pass catching backs, doesn't that sort of make you push Montgomery at least back to like the latter part of the running back ones, or maybe even early running back 2s, just because of the sheer number of targets and snaps that those 2 other guys are like essentially going to have to get?
No, I mean, I think those are niche guys. They're used very minimally. Yeah, they're going to play, but they're not going to take away from what he does. Like, I think the fact that we've seen that he can catch the ball, we know what he can do as a running back. He's cemented himself as their guy, like first, second down, third down guy. Maybe if they're like third and long and shit like that, but Montgomery's going to be on the field at all downs. I really think he cemented himself as like, this is our fucking guy. We're going to use him.
Since I asked that question, and I want to turn it over to Mikey to address those other 2 guys, let's just clump all 3 of these guys in there real quick. I'm going to throw up we've had the Montgomery stats up there. I'm going to throw up the Cohen stats as well. So Cohen's going as the RB 51. Damian Williams is going as the RB 54. The main difference here that I noticed is Mikey is significantly higher on Tariq Cohen than both me and DJ are. And you guys are both significantly lower on Damian Williams than myself. So, Mikey, I'm going to let you address DJ's latest comments, and then we'll continue to debate all 3 of the guys.
I mean, with David Montgomery, I like him. I like him a lot, and I sincerely hope that he is an RB1 this year because he is really talented. There's no disputing that. My issue with David Montgomery is 2 things. One, Chicago's line is booty.
Still finished at 6 though last year.
Well, it's a brand new line essentially, but
it's really bad. Either way, like they were bad.
It's not a good line. It's not a good line whatsoever. I do think David Montgomery's rushing yards are going to go up this year. He finished with I think just short of 1,100 yards last year. The big thing with David Montgomery last year, what really drove his fantasy upside home, is that he had nearly 70 targets in the 15 games that he played. That's just not going to happen. And the reason I know that you're not too worried about Tariq Cohen, but I'm very worried about Tariq Cohen because in 2018 and 2019, Tariq Cohen combined for 195 targets. Even as a rookie in 2017, he had 71 targets. Like, if Tariq Cohen is healthy, he is 1,000% catching 80 80% of those backfield targets are going to be Tariq Cohen's. So I think in half PPR and PPR leagues, I think David Montgomery is hindered a lot from Tariq Cohen. Now, if you're still playing in a standard league for some reason, I wouldn't let that affect my decision too much. I think David Montgomery in standard, I do think David Montgomery could be a top 10 running back pretty easily. But in PPR, it's going with if Tariq Cohen is healthy all year. Plus, I haven't even brought up Damian Williams, who, we haven't seen him play since the Super Bowl 2 years ago, but he is a really good running back. He can catch the ball really well. He is going to, I don't want to say compete with David Montgomery for a 1-2 role, but he is going to sneak in on first and second downs occasionally. I think that David Montgomery is going to see a reduced workload this upcoming year. I think Justin Fields is going to hold on to the ball a lot more than Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles did, which is going to take away from David Montgomery. They can actually kind of draw up successful option plays now.
Right.
It's just, David Montgomery is going to be a great running back in real life. I just don't know if he's going to have the fantasy stats to make him anything more than a high-end RB2.
See, you and I are looking at this from two different perspectives, which is the big difference in how I look at things. I'm looking at this from the coach's best chance to win is having David Montgomery on the field as much as possible. I don't see Matt Nagy being like, well, Tariq Cohen put up really good fantasy points and had really good numbers 2 years ago, so let's go back and start using him when we actually believe David Montgomery is our best chance to win, and that's the guy we're going to feed the ball to because we've seen what we have now. It's just two different perspectives.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but the year that Chicago highly targeted Tariq Cohen was their best year over the last 3 seasons. I mean, it
was their best defensive season over the last.
Having Tariq Cohen on that offense is a complete game changer. David Montgomery is a half decent pass catcher, but he's not a premier pass catcher out of the backfield by any stretch of the imagination. I think you can agree with that.
He's a really good pass catcher.
He's good, but he's not.
It was him, James Robinson, probably two guys that were like guys who carried the ball, but also were good on the backfield catching the ball.
Yeah, I don't think he's bad. The issue is that Tariq Cohen is literally a specialist in catching the ball out of the backfield. I think the competition is too stiff for David Montgomery to be considered anything more than a high end RB2. If you want, maybe there is a slight possibility that he sneaks into my low end RB1 by the start of the season, because I do like David Montgomery. I do believe in him. I think he's a really good running back, but since I'm so much higher on Tariq Cohen than the consensus, by rule, I have to be lower on David Montgomery.
Once again, I kind of fall between you two because I also really like David Montgomery. I'd be happy to make him the 15th running back off the board, even in a half PPR league. But where I think you guys are sleeping a little bit, it's that addition of Damian Williams.
Because 3 running backs aren't relevant. They're just not.
Well, here's why I personally have Damian Williams ranked higher than Tariq Cohen. Wow. Is because Damian Williams also is that, I don't want to call him an elite pass catching running back, but he thrives there. But I think he's more polished on the ground than Tariq Cohen. Has Tariq Cohen ever been let's hand the ball to this guy kind of running back and let him create? It hasn't really worked out that way. His fantasy points come through the air, whereas Damian Williams has been a hybrid of both. So if they need to turn to a running back that's capable of playing on all 3 downs at any point in time, that's going to be Damian Williams.
Do you think there's a little bit of favoritism there?
I wouldn't call it favoritism. I mean,
you don't think so?
He did play for the Miami Dolphins, the greatest football team.
Not for you. Not for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was Nagy not with Damian Williams in Kansas City?
Here's the deal, DJ. I was singing the Dolphins fight song and you interrupted me. So can I start again?
No, because you took the wrong favoritism. I wasn't talking about you.
Oh, I was hoping you were talking about me. No. I don't know. I don't know if those guys can even play favoritism. And I also don't. The one thing I disagree with you as well is I don't think Nagy's fighting for his job right now. I think the idea.
What the fuck did you just say?
He's pretty safe.
Shut the podcast off.
No, I think he's safe because
DJ, I think Ben might be really drunk right now.
Yeah, shut this podcast off.
What the hell?
What did you just say?
His team is not as hot as you think it is.
He's the hottest.
No,
he might be the hottest head coach right now.
He's the number one hottest head coach. What do you mean McCarthy's coached for one season and Dak Prescott got hurt?
Consider it hot. The Bears defense is going to keep them relevant. Aaron Rodgers not playing for the Packers is going to keep them relevant. And the fact that they took a rookie quarterback, if they go to him and he struggles, you have an immediate out. Not even
they
if he
already
struggles,
lost
if he
that,
just
though.
doesn't go
They
crazy.
lost that reprieve. That's gone.
No, I'm just saying it's not as hot as you think it is.
It's the hottest. There's
It's
no
the
hotter.
back burner at best. It's the back burner at best.
I mean, I could confidently say you couldn't be more wrong in this situation.
Well, I can confidently say that I feel like I'm right.
Okay.
Any more running back talk, or should we move on to their wide receivers? Sounds like we're moving on to their wide receivers. Mikey, this is your guy, Allen Robinson. I don't know that I've ever met a person that likes Allen Robinson more than you. You have him as your wide receiver 8. DJ's got him at 14. I've got him at 10. The ADP has him as the wide receiver 12, right in the middle of us, going as the first pick in the 4th round. Mikey, you've done it before, but for the new listeners, confess your love to A-Rob.
He's so fucking good, dude. He's so reliable. I think it was, I don't know if it was over the last 2. I think it was over the last 2 seasons. He has the most contested catches in the entire National Football League. Over the last 2 seasons, he's also top 3 in throws that were deemed uncatchable by the quarterback. And he's still turning out massive stats. He had 1,250 yards last year. He had 1,150 yards the year before that. Last 2 years combined, he's played in 31 games, had over 300 targets. The Bears did not bring in any legitimate wide receiver help whatsoever. So there is no reason to believe that he won't, especially with an extra game on the schedule, there's no reason to believe Allen Robinson won't set a career high in targets this year. And like I was saying, he's just efficient as all hell. You don't have to rely on him to score a shit ton of touchdowns. He's only scored double-digit touchdowns once in his entire career, yet the last 2 seasons, he's still been a top 10, top 8 fantasy wide receiver. Honestly, having him at wide receiver 8. What's that?
Number 12 last year.
I don't think he was number 12.
Well, half-point PPR is what I look at, so I just like to say that and make you mad.
Oh, well, he was number 9 in PPR. Either way.
Bitch-ass.
Either way, top 10 wide receiver, any way you shape it. Reliable as all hell. The only good person on that Chicago Bears offense, arguably. Like, dude, he's so good. He's so good. He deserves better.
It's funny because, like, you think about, like, oh, you might have to avoid him because he might be playing with a rookie quarterback. But then you think about, like, exactly what you said. Look at the quarterbacks he's played with.
Dude, he's played with Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, and Nick Foles, and that's it. That's all he's had.
Dare you talk negatively about Blake Bortles?
Sorry, DJ, you can only be the president of one fan club.
They damn near went to a Super Bowl with Blake Bortles.
They should have. If it wouldn't have been for Blake Bortles.
They cheated.
Yes, I can't say anything too bad about him. Mikey, you proved me wrong last year. You kind of humbled me. You sat me in my wide receiver seat, and you just kind of spanked me a few times because I had him ranked as like a 20-some wide receiver. And you told me, dude, by the end of the season, you're going to realize that you're just sleeping on this dude.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. The same way DJ is. I can't hold the bias anymore. Like, you just got to admit sometimes when you were wrong. And I was wrong about him. And I'm not going to look at what the quarterback situation looks like. And I have him as my wide receiver 10. I'm higher than the damn national ADP on him. So I can't say anything too bad about him. You look at him going as the first pick in the 4th round. Dude, take McCaffrey. Take another good running back. Take that tight end. Then take Allen Robinson as your wide receiver 1, and your team would be unbelievably stacked.
Exactly. This is the case scenario. I mean, if you can get Allen Robinson at the start of your 4th round, I mean, this is the exact case scenario why in any redraft league that I'm in, I'm not taking a receiver in almost any scenario in the first 3 rounds.
I won't in the first 2, guaranteed.
The problem is, though, so many people have that. So when everyone's going one way, it kind of – yes, it will, DJ. I was just in a league with you where, like, one receiver was taken, like, in the first, like, 15 or 16 picks of that last draft that we had together. And it kind of screws you because then you're reaching for a dude like Joe Mixon. That's what
but in that case scenario, then you pivot. If your entire league is going right, you go left. If Devontae Adams is sitting there in the middle of the 2nd round, you don't dick around with grabbing a Joe Mixon or a David Montgomery. That's when you you kind of crumble up your plans and throw them out because.
But I think we're going to see.
I think we're going to see
You're going to
a
take
lot
David
of
Montgomery over Devontae Adams.
Maybe.
You're a fucking liar.
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding.
But guys, that's what we're going to see this year. We already saw it last year.
What is this Wi-Fi signal on my?
Get better internet.
Oh shit, that's not good.
But
there it is.
We saw it a bunch last year and the year before. We're going to see even more this year. Running backs are just going to come flying off, and you're going to have to do that pivoting. So it's not going to be for everyone, but I do agree with you though.
You waiting for me to say something?
Sure. Your Wi-Fi.
I feel like I had something to say, but I don't remember what. Oh, do you remember when Allen Robinson? I think part of the reason is that you don't like, or that you were biased against him like last year. Is like he had the one bad season after he tore his ACL, and he just didn't exist.
Right.
And then everybody kind of wrote him off. And then he went to Chicago, and then he just, he's put up really good numbers. Like, we forget that he had one, like, really bad year, and everybody just wrote him off the one season after the ACL tear.
Yeah, and one of the things with Allen Robinson, too, and I know we're not talking about dynasty, but the dude turns 28, I'm pretty sure, like, next week, and he's already entering – if you count his year where he only played in one game because of his ACL, he's entering his 8th year in the league as a 28-year-old. Like – He's entering the prime age. What's that?
He's been 28 for 8 years.
No, he's 28 now. He was 28 years ago. But what I'm saying is, age 28 is typically the quote unquote prime for receivers in the NFL. He's just entering it now, and he has 7 seasons under his belt already. I mean, he entered the league so young. He's a phenomenal football player.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, going back to like what DJ said about the injury there, is a lot of the times when these guys have these knee or Achilles, whatever the injury is that's significant like that, it takes them that first full year to get back. And yeah, we judge them harshly on that. We might see it from a guy like Courtland Sutton this year, for all we know. Granted, he had a lot more time to get better, and DJ's shaking his head like he wants to do this. But that's something you need to consider with these guys that got hurt the previous year. You don't want to forget about them, but a lot of the times it's that second year when they come back, because not everyone's the Adrian Peterson in the league that can just jump back and run for 2,000 yards as soon as they're back. You got to give them a little bit of time. And yeah, like I said, with Allen Robinson, I probably fell victim to that and judged him irrationally, and he's been balling ever since.
I think the crazy thing is that you had him as like wide receiver 20-something last year, despite him finishing as a top 8 receiver in 2019. Like, I had no idea where your mind was at.
I don't even remember where I had him at.
You had him even lower than Ben.
No, did I? Did we still have him up?
We were both really low. I don't think we have it.
You guys were both giving me shit, and I was like, guys, he's going to finish significantly closer to wide receiver 5 than wide receiver 24 or whatever the fuck you had him at. He finished at like 8 or 9 last year, so I'll take a victory lap on that.
Yeah, it's the classic, like, you hold your grudges, though. Like, if a player burns you, or if you're just kind of down on a guy, if you're down on a guy, like in your pre-draft as well, like these rookies, like, oh, I didn't really like that guy. I personally hold that over into fantasy football, and I hold that against people, but you shouldn't. At some point, you got to just let it go and see how things play out.
Yeah.
You don't have these in like the archive from I wish I could go see. I probably had it somewhere. I want to see where I had them ranked.
There's somewhere. I can look it up for you, but you're going to have to pay me to do it. I talk about doing this on the podcast, and I hate doing it, and I call it ending on the hangover, and I feel like that's what we're going to do here, because we're going to talk about Darnell Mooney. His ADP is the 55th wide receiver off the board. He's going in the back half of the 13th round. We all have him low, obviously. I'm wide receiver 56. DJ's got him as wide receiver 69. Mikey's got him as wide receiver 64. Can either of you two, I'll let you guys trample over each other since I'm not calling one of you out. Can either of you two do any sort of sell job to make it say, yeah, 12th, 13th round, you should definitely target this guy? Mikey's nodding his head. He can go.
Yes, 1,000%. I mean, I'm not insanely high on the Chicago Bears offense, but I am probably higher than most, despite my thoughts on David Montgomery. there's no, I mean, with the exception of Allen Robinson, there was literally no other receiver on that team. Darnell Mooney was a 5th-round draft pick last year and was 2 targets short of 100 targets last year as a rookie. He wasn't supposed to get that, but I guarantee he beats that this year. I'll be completely honest. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys can tell me. DJ, I'm sure you can. You're big into college football. How's Justin Fields on the deep ball?
He's accurate.
Then I am ashamed that I have Darnell Mooney so low at 64. I mean, I don't know if I could put him that much higher than his ADP at wide receiver 55. But if Justin Fields has an accurate deep ball, Darnell Mooney is quick as all hell, and he's actually a pretty damn good route runner. He's got a really fast release. I was actually just watching some of his highlights a couple of weeks ago because I'm that bored. I'm watching Darnell Mooney highlights. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. Nice. He's got kind of like a cult following on fantasy Twitter. Like people who are into Darnell Mooney are like way too into him. Like I don't think he's going to finish as you know like a top 30 wide receiver or something like that. But he will have a handful of week winning leagues or week winning fantasy outputs this year, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him finish somewhere in the top 35 because. I mean, like I was saying, Allen Robinson's the only competition. If Justin Fields is accurate downfield, Darnell Mooney is – I mean, he's going to see over 100 targets as a second-year receiver. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I like that. We're the late-round flyer. I mean, what? If you play in like a 16-round league, you're damn near taking him 3rd to last round here, 4th to last round if he slips in – or 2nd to last round, I should say, if he slips into the 14th. I don't mind that. The company he's keeping right now with like the consensus ADP, Marvin Jones, Cole Beasley, Nicole Hardman, John Brown, Elijah Moore, dart tosses. I mean, that's kind of what he's going into. But I agree with Mikey there. Like outside of Allen Robinson, who the hell are they throwing the ball to? Like this is your guy. I'm not going to jump out of my seat to get him. I'm not part of that fantasy Twitter that's pumping him up. But I agree with Mikey's take. I can't add much new to that. DJ, do you have anything else on Mooney?
You had Allen Robinson at 18. I had Allen Robinson at 21. Mikey had him at 5, and Ryan had him at 13.
Look at that. See, Mikey, you give me all this crap.
Ryan was the closest. Robinson.
I was only 4 spots off. I guess
you were 6. You were 7 spots off.
But I get labeled as like this Allen Robinson hater, where in fact DJ is the ultimate Allen Robinson hater.
No, I'm not a hater. I changed.
Well, look at your rankings.
Well, that was last year.
Yeah, look at this year. I've got him 4 spots higher than you. Suck it.
Well, whatever. It's that, but that was the part of the thing we were talking about a couple of weeks back. Is like you get into that area with wide receivers, and it's like. I mean, how many points off is 14 and 17 or 18? Like you're talking a couple of points here. Like it's interchangeable. I don't think you can go wrong there.
Yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, the reason why about Mooney.
The reason why we ended on Darnell Mooney is because Cole Kmet is currently the 30th tight end off the board, so I don't envision you making him an actual draft pick of yours. However, before we wrap this up, Jesus, DJ, we do have a listener question that came in that has nothing to do with either of these teams. But if you have the first pick in a half PPR league, are you going Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry? I think the answer is obvious. Clearly, Mikey does as well. And DJ, you didn't do this, but I feel like you are also part of the Christian McCaffrey train here.
Yeah, it's easy. That's not even a question.
Mikey, do you even need to say words, or did your video just tell you the story?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, is that like a replica of my penis on the bed?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Is Allen Robinson a bona fide fantasy star?
1,000%.
Damn it. I was hoping I could get you in your mix. But yeah, K-Money, thank you for the question. But yes, we are all under the belief that Christian McCaffrey is probably your number one pick in any league. Standard, half, full, dynasty, startup, whatever you're doing, make him your pick.
Yeah. One last question. It's probably going to take 45 minutes. And it has nothing to do with anybody that we talked about. I probably shouldn't ask it, but I've been thinking about it, so I have to get out of the way. Where did you guys have Saquon ranked?
I think I had him at like he might have been like number 4 or 5 for me. I was kind of low on him last year for some reason.
Where do I have him ranked going into this year? Well,
Oh, this year.
Yes, this year. Right now, where do you have him ranked?
I have him as running back 5.
I have him as 3.
Okay, so if you're sitting there and you have Saquon Barkley at the board in a position that you like him, are you taking him or are you hesitant?
I am hesitant, I will admit, but it really depends on what else is there. Like, do you have a scenario that you can give me?
No, are you just like maybe taking RB4 just because Saquon?
I will say I'm taking Saquon over any receiver, if that helps. There's
my question. Like your RB4 is Kamara or whatever, or Cook, and you have Saquon at 3, but now you're like, wow, I'm a little bit worried. I'm going to go ahead and take Cook instead.
So I'm looking at my rankings here. I do have Barkley only behind Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey, but with I don't think Saquon's going to be number 3 on my rankings when I retouch him. Right. I do think because you're right. I mean, in a scenario, if I'm staring down Alvin Kamara or even, Jonathan Taylor or something like that, like I'm probably taking them over Saquon because I'm scared. I'm scared of the injury and I'm scared of the Giants.
Because if he plays a full season, you're like, okay, he's like RB3, right? But then you're like, fuck. Now I'm just scared. Like, I don't think he's injury prone, but it's still like in your head.
Yeah, I'd rather have a little less upside and a lot more safety with my first round pick.
Yeah, I would say, DJ, the nice thing is it's only like mid to late July, and hopefully we have a little bit more of an answer by the time we actually have a redraft.
I don't think you do.
Well, no, we don't, because I was actually – so for the first time in months, I was watching NFL Network. I know, crazy.
We were all watching it on the same day, actually.
They did an interview with Saquon Barkley, and they straight up asked him, like, do you have a timetable? He still doesn't have a timetable for when he's coming back. He cannot – tell you when he's coming back, even just to practice. So, I mean, there's already a chance that he could be out, at least the first week or 2 of the season. We don't know what's going on. Or at the very least, he might not be practicing until just before the season starts. And, he's a phenomenal running back, but he's been out of the game for a year now. You don't know how that's going to translate to the first few weeks of the season.
More than a year, isn't it?
No, because he got injured at the beginning of the season.
Well, didn't he get injured in the season before for a while too?
He was injured. I think he missed in
2019.
It was an ankle sprain, high ankle sprain.
Yeah. So he missed a good amount of games, and he was never fully recovered. And then he had a couple of good games, so he missed some time in that year before for quite a while.
I mean, the thing with Saquon Barkley is that, and I hate to say this, I really do, but it almost feels like you're chasing his rookie year the same way that some people, myself included, are chasing Michael Thomas's 2019. It hasn't happened in a couple of years.
Ezekiel Elliott still.
The situation is completely different. I don't know. Like, there's just something. We haven't actually seen any eliteness from Saquon Barkley at a consistent level since his rookie year, which was now 3 years ago.
Yeah, he's just a freak, but yeah.
I honestly think next week the 2 teams that we discuss should be the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree.
You guys just put that. So let's plan on that one for next week. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to add today?
Love you.
Fair enough.
Allen Robinson's the most underrated receiver in the world.
It's funny because DJ coughed, so it made it sound like whatever you said afterwards was like a little subtle thing, but it is what it is. Check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. All of our podcast episodes, our articles, our redraft and dynasty fantasy rankings, everything is there. Mikey, why don't you go ahead and show the world your T-shirt, because I think that's a Mona reference, but I don't quite understand
Moana.
Okay, sorry about that again. Next episode, we're apparently doing the same thing, but with the Giants and the Cowboys. We're available everywhere. Subscribe, rate, review. DJ, Mikey, anyone, Mona, send us out.
Bye.